For as long as I could remember, the old church on the edge of town had been the subject of hushed conversations and rumors. It was said to be cursed, or haunted, one of those places that drew the curious, but few were brave enough to venture near. Over the years, the stories had taken on a life of their own, ghostly figures, strange sounds echoing through the night, and shadows that seemed to move on their own. I didn't put much stock in these tales, but something about the church's mystery stirred my curiosity, so one evening I decided to see it for myself. When I arrived that night, the fog was thick, wrapping around everything in a heavy, unnatural stillness. The church appeared before me like an ancient creature half swallowed by the dark. Its once grand roof had caved in, and the stone walls stood cracked and weathered, draped in a suffocating tangle of ivy. The remnants of stained glass lay scattered on the ground, shattered pieces catching what little light filtered through the fog, like forgotten fragments of something beautiful long past. I stepped inside, my flashlight flickering as if uncertain. The smell of damp wood and rotting pews hit me instantly, musty and ancient. Dust hung in the air, swirling in tiny clouds as I made my way through the main hall. My footsteps echoed, bouncing off the stone walls, amplifying the vast emptiness around me. There was something unsettling about being in that hollowed-out space where people had once come seeking comfort and hope, now silent and abandoned. The sound of a distant whisper made me stop. I held my breath, scanning the shadows, expecting to see some trick of the light. But there was nothing. I shook it off as my mind playing tricks and continued deeper into the building. Near the altar, I felt the air turn colder. My breath fogged up in front of me, and an inexplicable weight settled over my chest. Just as I was about to turn back, a flicker caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just another shadow thrown by the crumbling architecture, but it moved a slow, deliberate shift, darker than the surrounding night. I stood frozen, heart pounding, as a shadowy figure formed in the dimness near the altar. Its shape was indistinct, like it was made of thick smoke, and it moved with a fluidity that seemed wrong. There was no noise, no footsteps, just a chilling, silent glide as it seemed to grow larger, stretching up and out, merging with the surrounding darkness, yet somehow separate from it. I could feel its eyes, though it had none, an intense, probing sensation that reached into the depths of my mind, turning my curiosity into an overwhelming sense of dread. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. I watched, powerless, as the figure extended an arm. Or was it an arm? It seemed more like a wisp of darkness stretching toward me. The closer it got, the heavier the air became, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Just when I thought I couldn't stand it any longer, I heard something a whisper, not quite a word, but something that echoed inside my head, filling my mind with thoughts that weren't my own. Leave. Leave this place. The message was clear, and suddenly I could move again. I stumbled backward, my flashlight slipping from my hand and clattering to the floor. It rolled, the beam flashing over the walls, casting wild shadows as I backed away. The shadowy figure seemed to retract, melting back into the darkness as if it had never been there. But I knew it had been. I could still feel its presence lingering, watching, even as I reached the doorway. Outside, I stopped to catch my breath, my heart racing. I glanced back at the church, expecting to see the figure staring at me from one of the broken windows, but there was nothing, just the empty, yawning silence of that cursed place. I turned away, practically running down the road, not stopping until I was safely in my car, doors locked, breathing heavy in the confined space. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I shut my eyes, the figure appeared in my mind, its presence pressing against me like a weight. I could hear that faint whisper in my head, a warning that reverberated long after I woke. In the days that followed, the unease never left. It felt like something had attached itself to me, something invisible, yet inescapable, as though the darkness had seeped into my very being. Now I catch flashes of movement in the corners of my sight, something dark slipping away the moment I turn to look. A sensation of being watched when I'm alone in my room, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. It's always there, lingering in the background, a constant reminder of what I encountered in that church. I understand now why people avoid it. Once you've encountered it, once you've felt it, it becomes a part of you. That figure, shadowed and silent, follows you, ever present, watching, waiting,